Okay, I do not always get it right. And I'm going to give you a perfect example of a customer that I pissed off inadvertently. I was working a flight. It always starts off like that. And we were in the boarding process. We were doing our final cabin safety checks. The exit rows have to be briefed before we leave to make sure that the people who sit there are qualified to take off in those seats. I got to one of the emergency exit rows, and a gentleman who was a little bit on the bigger side didn't have his seatbelt fastened. So I thought maybe he needed a seatbelt extender. So I asked him, "Sir, do you need a seatbelt extender?" Because he was a bigger guy and his seatbelt wasn't done. That's usually what it is. But usually they ask for it before we offer it. He was traveling with his wife, and his wife said, "Oh my God, did you hear that? She just discriminated against you." And I said, "No, actually, I thought maybe he just needed," and what are you saying? Are you saying he's fat? Are you saying he's too big for the seat? And no, I didn't. I immediately wished I had rephrased that in a different way, but I didn't. The only reason why I asked him is because in an emergency exit row, if you need a seatbelt extender, you can't sit in the emergency exit row because the extender can become an obstruction in the unlikely event of an emergency evacuation. That's all. I did not say that, "Hey man, you look morbidly obese, dude. I think you need to get a seatbelt extender." I didn't. I just asked. It was so matter of fact out of my mouth, and she said, "I read an article where airlines discriminate against fat people." And I'm like, "I'm not discriminating against him. I was just asking him a question." I felt so bad about what I did and what I said. It just came out wrong. It really did. I really had no malicious intent to hurt this guy's feelings, which he wasn't even arguing. He wasn't even upset. It was the wife who was like, "I can't believe it, honey. Like, you should be outraged right now." And I was just like, I have never, ever, pressed a hot button like that before. So I wasn't even the lead flight attendant on this flight. I was just working. It was a domestic flight. I don't even know where we were going anymore. I went up to the lead flight attendant. I really insulted this man, and I didn't know what I said wrong that set this woman off. And I told her exactly what I said, and she said, "You know what I do in this situation?" I said, "No, what do you do?" She said, "If I see somebody on the bigger side whose seatbelt is not fastened," she says, "Sir, can you please fasten your seatbelt so that we may leave?" And she stays there until they fasten the seatbelt. If they are having problems fastening the seatbelt and they require an extender, then she goes into the spiel about you can't sit here, or if they're in a regular seat, she'll just get them a seatbelt extender. And that's it. End of story. And from that day forward, one of those lessons that when you learn it, you got it, you'll never do that again. That I will never do that ever again. I will never offer somebody a seatbelt extender. Please fasten your seatbelt before we take off, and stand there and wait for them to do it. Live and learn.